Welcome to another episode of Heart Talks. If you're new to the channel, here I educate on heart health and topics relating to cardiology. In the Heart Talk series, I have a conversation with medical educators. I'm really excited to have our guest on today. I'm in the beautiful city of Salzburg here in Austria, and I've just finished filming a echo masterclass, so do check that out soon. And I'm here with the founder of Medmastery, Dr. Franz Wiesbauer. Have I said that right?
Yeah, you have.
I was practicing. He taught me during dinner yesterday, so I was practicing overnight. So I'm glad I got that right. So Franz, it's such a pleasure to have you on here. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. Of course, I want to talk about Medmastery, but I want to go back a step. I want to talk about, firstly, your medical education, because I think that'll be really interesting to our viewers to hear that. So tell me, where did you do your medical training?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on. And thanks for coming to record the course for Medmastery, which is going to serve lots of people. So thanks for that.
Pleasure.
And yeah, I'm a cardiologist by training, trained at the Medical University of Vienna. Did a master's degree in public health at Johns Hopkins. Did lots of research in my clinical days, mainly in cardiovascular epidemiology and cardiac imaging. In 2010, ventured into online education and have been doing this ever since.
Amazing. So what was it about online education that attracted you in the first place?
Well, I think I was always a teacher in my heart. That was always the part that I enjoyed doing the most, teaching, educating medical students in the university back then. And then I was always very entrepreneurial, creative. I always had ideas about, how could something be done better? How could something be easier? I always had these ideas, and I had friends who had startups. And so I thought to myself, at some point, I did an online course in healthcare management. And I thought, there could be, you could do this better, that better. And then I was so into this that I thought to myself, I could actually create a platform where you could learn echocardiography, which was my specialization back then. And so that's how the first idea for the first startup came about. And then 2014, I wanted to make that turn that into an even bigger vision with Medmastery, where you could learn the most important clinical skills. So I think that's in a nutshell my path into online education.
Amazing. So it was firstly you saw an opportunity within echo. So that was 123 sonography.
True.
And that's how I first encountered your work. So it was during my echo training that I came across the site, and I had no idea that you were a part of that until I started working with you. And in fact, this might be interesting to our viewers that I have been in contact with you with our previous work, the mini course that we did on handheld echo. That was a couple of years ago now. And even prior to that, I think it's been 4 years since we've known each other, but I've actually met him for the first time this week because obviously the pandemic and that wouldn't allow travel. But what I definitely got from you is that creativity side, looking at things in a different light. Is that important as a teacher?
Well, I think creativity, you mean, if creativity is important for a teacher? Yeah. I'm not so sure if you need to be the most creative person as a teacher, really. I think you need to have a knack for communicating. I think that you need to have a desire to help others understand. I think those are the kinds of drivers that you need to have to be a great teacher. Creativity, I think, for me in my life is more important in my job as an entrepreneur, to try to solve problems creatively. That is more where creativity is needed. I mean, it doesn't hurt to be creative when you're a teacher, but if you ask me if it's like an essential skill, I don't think so, actually.
Okay. So the big question, what makes a great teacher?
Well, we have a mantra at Medmastery where we think that the essence of great teaching is knowing what not to teach or what not to say. The problem we see most commonly with even very experienced educators is the fact that they try to say too much. They basically want to make sure to not omit anything, to not forget anything, and that's why they want to say, tell you how what the British guidelines say, what the American guidelines say, what the German guidelines say. And we usually have to say, no, that's too much. Tell the learner how you do it. Mm-hmm. They just want to know one way of doing it. So I think the essence is to not cover the important with the unimportant. Yeah. So I think a key skill, and that relates to, I think, editing, so writing, teaching is the fact that you need to edit your work. You need to edit stuff out. If a sentence, still says the same thing after you remove a word, then that word really has no reason to be there, right? And so I think with that kind of mindset, you have to approach education. It's if you take the analogy of like when you teach someone echo, and back in the days when the machines really had like so many buttons, and you would teach someone how to use that machine. And I don't know. I mean, these machines are still around, but they have a different interface. But these many buttons, and people are intimidated. And then when you tell them, well, actually, you can get 90% of the value from that machine by mastering somewhere between 10 and 15 buttons, let's say, right? The buttons that are pressed the most. So I think the analogy I try to bring is, when someone starts out, you would try to teach them these 10 most essential buttons. Only when they know them will you teach them the next 10 most important buttons. And then that's an analogy. First of all, it makes learning echo so much easier, but it's an analogy that you can use for basically anything, right? When you teach someone something, it's like, what are the 10 most important buttons here, right? And only focus on those and teach, and don't cover the other button over there or this, or just so you know, this other button does this and this button does that. No, if you say that outside of the 10 buttons that you should focus on, then you're actually distracting your learner, right? And so I feel like that is the most common problem for most educators, is to really focus on these most important things and to just leave the other things out for now. So I think that would be the most important part. And then I think energy, people are looking for, they have a hunger for people to motivate them.
Yes.
To, reinstigate a passion for the craft. I think the best teachers are those that can really kindle that flame, that help you, get the passion back, or remind you why you went into medicine in the first place. Those are just two ideas. I think I could think up even more, but it would be too much for this conversation.
No, absolutely. So what I'm getting is communication is key. Being focused. I got that. What is the difference with online teaching and in-person teaching? Do you think the skill set, I think what I'm hearing from you is the skill set teaching, does that always translate to online? So if somebody is a great teacher in person in a typical lecture theatre, would they always translate that skill when they're doing an online course?
We have now worked with so many teachers worldwide, and we've come to find that in order to be a great online educator, you have to be a great educator in real life. But you have to have some additional skills on top of that. Mm. So first of all, I think it's pretty hard to become a great educator online if you're not tech savvy. So I think knowing really how to use the computer tools like Dropbox, Google Drive, whatnot, those are really, really important. If you don't master those, then it's going to be really hard to be a good online educator. We've come to realize that there are certain people who connect really well with an audience, and they need the audience in order to perform well. And there were people who were very motivated to work with us initially. But then when they realized that they had to speak into a camera, talk into a microphone, that they realized, this is really not for me. I want to see how what I say is received by the audience. So some can be discouraged by learning about the process. Other than that, I think that it's very similar, really. I mean, it can be learned. I think maybe one thing is that you have to undergo a certain paradigm shift when you start teaching online, because when we teach in real life, we are used to these 15-minute units that we normally teach in. And those don't work online because the teaching videos have to be short and you have to think in much shorter time frames. So what you have to do is you have to chunk up something that you would normally teach in 50 minutes and think, how can I teach? What are the components that I teach here? What are the Lego blocks? And how can I create 5-minute Lego blocks instead of this 50-minute unit? And then very often what we realize is that we can teach the same stuff that people would normally teach in 50 minutes in much less time. So let's say in 4 5-minute videos, right? So very often we realize that by chunking things up in these 5-minute Lego blocks, we are much more effective. And I think this is something that might actually be really well, could be translated from, I think if you were to do a lecture and you thought in your 5-minute units instead of your 50-minute units, even that live lecture would become better. Yeah. So I think that there are just so many things that are slightly different online as compared to live. But I think if you become a great online educator, you will also improve your live teaching skills.
Yeah. And just getting onto that, I mean, it's quite unique of Medmastery of keeping the videos succinct. I think I remember when I first interacted with you, you asked the teacher to create a video. A 4-minute to 7-minute video was my initial task. And it's actually hard to do that. It takes, you have to really see, like you were saying, what is important? What do I really need to include in this information? Why is it that you think that time period of 4 minutes to 7 minutes is optimal for teaching?
I don't really know. It's probably a time span that people can focus, and we have limited attention spans. So it might also have to do with the frequency of push notifications on the phone. You know, many people are learning on their phone. So when we teach, we have to try to fit our units or videos into these these intervals between push notifications. I think it's right. The data says that the sweet spot of a good educational video is below 6 minutes. So there has been science done especially by the folks at edX, which is this collaboration between Harvard and MIT. They've analyzed thousands of teaching videos, and they found that an engaging educational video should be below 6 minutes in length. And I'm sure that will change at some point, like with newer generations, maybe attention spans will decrease even further, maybe not. But I think right now, and I'm sure you could find some sort of like neurological explanation for why that is the ideal time. Sure. But yeah, I think it's just we get bored. Our minds get bored if you can't get to the point fast. It's just you're losing people's attention.
Yeah. I want to talk about the Medmastery workflow. So in the beginning, when you start thinking of the topic, is it the topic that you choose first, or is it the teacher that you find, or is it a mix of both? So how do you recruit the teacher? Where do you find them from?
We find them. We have a recruitment team, and they reach out to people that they think might be great educators from Medmastery. We start out with the course topic, and then we try to find good teachers for these topics. Mm-hmm. But sometimes, people would approach us and say, "Hey, I teach topic X, Y, or Z, and I would love to do a course for you." And sometimes, even if we don't have that on our short list of courses that we want to do over the next year or 2 years, but we really believe that the teacher is great. We might even do a course with them, like your course, your first, the mini course on handheld echo in the setting of COVID, was not something that we were actively looking for, but you approached us. You said, "Hey, I have this way of doing echoes on these COVID patients." It was a time when people were still very unsure how to handle COVID patients, or how, from the hygiene wise and stuff. So we said, Hafiz is a great, is very photogenic, can speak well, can teach well. Yeah, let's do it. So sometimes there are these instances where we do a little more opportunistic, if you want to call it that, kind of a course creation. But normally we start with a clear course strategy. And that's usually based on what we hear from our audience, what the kinds of courses they want to see. We then produce those.
And speaking about the audience, who do you target? Is it medical students? Is it doctors? Of course, that depends on the topic, but who do you have in mind to view your videos?
Mostly we educate physicians. So most of our audience comes from I always call it the internal medicine universe, which is internal medicine, its subspecialties like cardiology, nephrology, endocrinology, but then also family doctors, lots of family doctors, emergency medicine specialists. We now have more and more nurse practitioners and physician assistants on the site, paramedics, nurses, who want to learn advanced skills. We focus on skill acquisition. We don't want to compete with text in areas where text is superior. Like, what is the dosage of a beta blocker after heart attack? I mean, that is not something where video excels. It's like that text is better there. It's faster. Mm. We want to teach these skills that are normally hard to learn from texts, where we think that video excels. So the audience is I would say, mostly these doctors from the internal medicine universe plus advanced practice providers. Yeah.
Yeah, because when I first came across Medmastery, I just started my specialization in cardiology. It was about 6 years ago. I think I was 20 at the time, giving away my age. But I really thought as a junior, starting a specialty, particularly the courses on echo, so the transthoracic course, later on the TOE course, and the angiography course was just such a great introduction, because one of the benefits I found with online education is that you can take it at your own pace. You can really do a lesson when you have time. The lessons are relatively short. But apart from that, what are the benefits of online teaching that you don't get in person?
The benefits of online teaching, you mean from the teacher's perspective or from a learner's perspective?
Firstly, from the learners, so the people who access Medmastery, what is the benefit that they can get from Medmastery that they can't get in an in-person lecture?
Mm-hmm. Well, obviously, I think that if you have a great educator who's there to teach you and you are next to her, next to him, that is always the best way to learn almost anything, right? But we think that having access to Medmastery is almost like the next best thing, because we really look for great educators, and we want to make them available to you as a learner. So if you don't have that person next to you who is your mentor, who teaches you the skills you want to learn, then I think we are your next best choice, because these are educators that you would likely not have access to on your own. They are from great universities. We go through, they've almost all of them have lots of teaching experience, but we coach them on the aspects of adult learning theory that they might not know so much about, because most educators, when you, let's say, teach your cardiologist who also teaches, very likely you are trying to keep ahead of your game in cardiology. But when it comes to how learning works, it's very likely that most people, they don't know much about the science of learning theory. And that's where we add our knowledge, because that's where we are the experts. We publish on learning theory. In the literature, we create courses on how to teach, how working memory works, and so we try to help these already great educators use these principles of learning theory to create a great learning product. So I think we think more about how learning works than most other providers. Almost any other provider. I think that shows in the way, when you read our users' feedback, it's just amazing to read what they say. Lots of them say, nobody has ever taught me like that. And so I think it pays off to think a lot about how to make a course great, in how to use learning science to make it better. So I don't know if that answers your question. Obviously, when you learn online, you always have the teacher with you on your phone. You can, if you just learned how to do lumbar puncture on Medmastery, you can, before doing the intervention, look it up again or look at our handouts, and refresh your memory. I think that's something that you can't do with a live lecture. Obviously, you can't bring it along. So we're basically there with you whenever you need us. We're your mentor in your pocket, really.
Sure. So you found the teacher, you found the topic that you want them to teach. You both agreed on it. What happens next? Because I've been through the process of Medmastery twice now, and there's definitely a process. There's a clear structure with an amazing team working with you, so you're never alone. So I want to hear it from the founder. So what happens next? So when you found the teacher now.
we try to define or get clarity on what it is that we want to do together. Try to really paint a picture of what the course is that we want to produce together. Define that, create a table of content, break the topic down into these Lego blocks that I talked about. Then we hook them up with our instructional design experts, our course managers. They coach them. They're the ones who know the ins and outs of what makes a great educational video. Then come the designers who then create the visuals for the course. After the course, and then the teacher comes and we record the course, or we do home recording. In the pandemic, that's what we had to do. Now we do more and more recording here in Salzburg. And then comes quality assurance. We have an internal quality assurance process. We have an external quality assurance process with a peer reviewer who goes through all of courses. And at the end of the day, we also have a what we call post-mortem, where we sit together and we say what has worked well in this course, what hasn't worked so well, so that we can learn and continuously get better. And so it's an iterative process, but there's lots of stuff behind the scenes that the teachers don't even kind of know about, because our internal quality assurance process, our external quality assurance process, all of that, teachers are usually not involved. But we try, from a teacher's perspective, we try to make your life much easier, because we want you to really just think about how to teach something. We don't want you to have to think about formatting, what font am I using, what images, These are all things that we take care of. And by having a course manager by your side who challenges you, who tries to help you make your storytelling better, to reduce the message, to the essence, we just try to make your life easier so that you can think of the things that you are an expert on and let the others take care of the process of the things that they're the experts on. That's what we are trying to do.
Oh, definitely. I mean, firstly, the course managers do an amazing job. So shout out to Laura and shout out to Shirley, my course managers for my 2 courses. I mean, what they do is really, like you were saying earlier, really help you to structure and focus. Because the idea that you had in the beginning, in terms of creating the topic, as you see it evolve during the whole Medmastery process, you're kind of seeing, wow, the transition is amazing, how the whole team works together to support the teacher. And it's just been an amazing journey being part of it. So now that the course managers, everyone's happy with the content, what happens during the filming time? So they come to Salzburg, usually. And what happens during this week?
Well, you should tell that story, actually.
I mean, it's amazing. It's you get paired with somebody to do the recording. So I was, in my first time, I didn't come to Salzburg. It was during COVID, so that was not possible. So I worked virtually with Nate. So shout out to Nate. This time round, I was paired with Julian. So Julian's just sitting there. Actually, he's off camera. But it's such an amazing working environment. I definitely saw, in terms of the team, all different backgrounds, all different ages, which I think is so important. And, it really about making the teacher not only feel comfortable, but also to refine the teacher skills. Because I've definitely come away feeling that I've become a better teacher as a result of this. So is that something that's planned, just to make sure that the whole process is also not only providing great content for the audience, but also helping the teacher refine their skills?
Sure. That's one of the main aspects of what we try to do is we try to help you improve your skills as an educator. And so we're in a way your teachers in with respect to learning theory and so forth. And almost everyone who has finished producing a course says that they've learned so much working with us. And obviously, for us, it's also good for you to help you become better, because we want to continue working with you, right? And if you become better and better all the time as an educator, obviously that's also helping us create better online courses, so everyone profits from this. And then we also try to create a great experience for the teachers here in Salzburg, where they have good and fond memories when they go back to the US, Canada, UK, wherever, Germany, wherever they come from. So yeah, we try to grow together, actually.
Yeah.
Because also we learn a lot from the teachers. It's learning that goes in both ways, to be frank.
Oh, absolutely. And even today we were doing the on-screen, the on-screen camera parts of the course. And I'm working with the two Johanneses, who's been amazing setting this up today. And this is like training, just to refine that, getting immediate feedback from people who've done this for so many years. And for me, it's just been an amazing experience. In terms of a teacher, so do you think everybody who has a interest in teaching can become a great teacher? Do you think it's a learned skill set, or in part, do you think you're born with it?
There's certainly a little bit of both, but I definitely think that anyone who really wants to be a great teacher can become a great teacher. It's certain principles of communication that are definitely learnable. I think what already helps if you are a good communicator in print, that would be a first thing to try to hone your writing skills, to try to get feedback on texts that you write, for clarity, for brevity, so I think if that is also already a first step, it's go out and kind of teach a lot, get in front of groups and start teaching and see how they react. You'll see question marks in their eyes if you don't do a good job, but you'll see very engaged audience if you do a good job. So I think it's definitely learnable. We have 2 master classes on how to be a good educator. One is on how to create a great online course, and the other one is on the psychology of learning. So if you understand the principles behind learning, then obviously you're also going to be able to do a much better job. And those are all learnable skills, I think.
No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it was actually my experience with Medmastery that influenced me and really inspired me to create this YouTube channel. So, for me, the experience, like you say, working together again, you hopefully are becoming better each time, understanding the way in which the workflow works. So thank you very much for taking the time to do this. I mean, this is what I love about Franz. Every time I make a suggestion, it's always a yes. It's never a no. It's always, yes, let's do it. And I think that spirit of being open-minded and really open to ideas is, I think, part of the reason why it's just done so great. So please continue, do what you're doing. And thank you very much for this amazing experience in Salzburg.
Thank you, Hafiz, for coming, and thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So if you've enjoyed this conversation, please do subscribe and hit the like button so you don't miss future videos. Thank you for watching.